Well, hello, everybody. This is Michael McCormick, and you are listening to the Superintendent Hot Seat, where bold leaders share real stories behind their most difficult challenges and decisions as they work to improve student safety, wellness, and attendance in a system not yet fully prepared to support those entering our schools. Today, we have as a very special guest, Shannon Cox, from the Montgomery County Educational Service Center. Shannon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're just going to dive right in. If you had to rethink, and I know you're in process of this already, how are you thinking differently? How have you been thinking differently about student wellness? And you actually support multiple school districts in your region, whether we're thinking about student anxiety, depression, bullying, or violence. How are you approaching this work, and how are you supporting multiple different? So your role is different from anybody else we've had on the podcast. So welcome, and let's dive right in.
Okay. Again, thank you so much for having me. Here at Montgomery County ESC, we do support 16 public school districts. They're our main clients. So it is my job here at the ESC to ensure that those superintendents and boards of education and communities have the resources they need to be able to support their students in each of their communities. But we have about 625 employees. They wake up every day, go to 149 different locations across 21 different counties. So when we talk about student wellness, we actually talk about student wellness from a larger footprint than just Montgomery County. But I'll tell you really quickly, we did it wrong to begin with. Dayton, Ohio has had a trajectory of trauma over the last couple of decades. And while it's a great place to live, it's a great place to raise your family, it's a great place to go to school, coming off of the recession in 2008, we got hit pretty hard with the opioid epidemic. Here in our region of Ohio, we have Interstate 70 and Interstate 75 that, cross right here in Dayton, Ohio. And so we had two drug cartels that set up shop right here at home. And it began taking a real toll on the population of our communities here in the Montgomery County or Dayton region. And so we started seeing student wellness get hit pretty hard. And we had principals and superintendents that came to us and knocked on our door and said, hey, we need help. We have students that are going into foster care like no other because their parents were quite literally dying. We had student behaviors that were coming into our kindergarten classrooms with acuity that we had never seen before. And so as we started to recover from the opioid epidemic, clearly much earlier than the pandemic, we also were hit with 15 tornadoes that rolled through our region on a Memorial Day evening. And so we had 3 school districts specifically that were absolutely, again, at the crosshairs of tragedy and trauma. We also then had a mass shooting on the heels of that in August, couple months later. And then interstage left, we hit the worldwide pandemic. And so over the last several years, we have just been chronically traumatized. And when we were looking at what to do to help schools, we instantly went to student level prevention. We went to student level intervention. And what we realized is that was just the wrong approach. And so if I had to rethink student wellness right off the bat again, I would do exactly what I did about 6 years ago, which was rethink it and say, press pause, call a timeout, a full court timeout, everybody go to the bench. We need to rethink this. And it really is about starting with the adults first, not the students first. The adults are the number one caretakers of children. And so whether it is our social workers, our educators, our principals, our superintendents, our churches, our community organizations here in the region, it's about taking care of the adults first. And so when we work with school districts now, we do not start with the students. We actually do a year-long cohort with the adults in that community or the adults in that school district. And then we create a plan, and then we implement the plan and provide those prevention and intervention techniques for students. Now, again, very clearly, we have services that we provide. And so if a district comes in and says, we need signs of suicide or SOS because we are dealing with a suicide issue in our school district, we're not going to say no, but we're going to come alongside of that district and work with their adults for that full year. If we get it right, we do it as a prevention exercise. We work with that cohort for an entire year, and then we start putting in the interventions for students. But again, sometimes we have to do it both as a preventative measure and an intervention measure. But what we have found is that works really, really well when you can work with the adults first and then really take into account what we need to do, what's already being done in the school district, and then what do we need to do as an additive to really round out that prevention plan and intervention plan.
Yeah, I so love the vulnerability. Thank you for sharing, because I think that really shortens the runway for somebody else who may just be at the early stages of thinking about this work. And it's not to say that you're not still providing that crisis intervention. You've got the playbook on that, and oftentimes I know when we had some significant tragedies in my own school district, we were reaching out to the local service center because this is the expertise that you all really bring to the table when, more metaphorically speaking, things are on fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you guys come in, you've got specially trained folks, and you can do that immediate response and get things rolling. But I really love what you said about we need to focus on the adults in the system. And it almost reminds me that, when the adults are healthy and feeling good and have a degree of their own job satisfaction and fulfillment, it really makes a difference for the kids. And so that's exactly what you're thinking about from a very strategic lens, given that you support so many schools and districts, counties. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that your fingerprints were all over so many different school systems of varying sizes and structures. So that's fantastic. Is there one kind of program implementation that you could kind of talk through that you're really proud of?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So again, pre-pandemic, as we were starting to get these phone calls from districts saying, just please help us, we kind of looked around for what was out there already. Like, what could we show already, go get on behalf of districts, drive down the price and be able to scale it across multiple districts. And we really had a tough time finding something that we would consider like a whole district approach. There were certainly shovel-ready explicit SEL curriculums, and there were shovel-ready explicit, potentially like, well, not even prevention, but like intervention programs. Like we could, if you had trouble with vaping, there were vaping, programs. But we didn't really see anything that was sort of the systemic way of looking at a school district and saying, okay, what do you already have in place in sort of that MTSS level, right? Like tier 1 universal strategies, tier 2, tier 3. And so we decided that we were going to, I've got this saying I tell my staff all the time, like, nobody's coming to save us. This is the part in the movie where the protagonist looks around and realizes like, nobody's coming to save her. So we kind of put our capes on and we decide, how we're going to approach this. And it's certainly not to say that those programs that are shovel ready, that are very, intervention specific, we certainly want to put those in the tool belt, right? There are definitely resources out there, but really looking at that comprehensive way to approach programming, it didn't exist. And so we did a couple of different things. We started with the National Institute for, Behavioral Health. We looked at CASEL's, community-wide implementation frameworks. We got trained in the neurosequential model by Dr. Bruce Perry, probably the most life-changing training I've ever been through. And then we realized that we were going to have to kind of bring all of those pieces together and still continue to look for those resources. IIRP for restorative practices, right? Trauma-informed practices, trauma-sensitive practices. We had to bring all of those pieces together, but we realized there really just wasn't something that was so comprehensive, and so we built it. And so the work that we do does kind of comprise a step one, like bringing leaders together and working with those district and building leaders for a year, providing those, again, shovel-ready programming that need to take place right away, but then also looking more comprehensively about what does your strategic plan already look like? What do you already have as far as goals and metrics? Because we don't want to add one more survey. We don't want to add, one more thing. And the districts really have to own this. And so looking at it from that comprehensive perspective, then we also have time to bring in key community stakeholders and families and parents, and most importantly, student voice, making sure that we, are not just doing things to children, but we're doing things for and on behalf and with alongside children and the students. And so I'm really proud of how our team kind of puts that together and takes that to any school district. It can be a large urban school district. It can be a small rural school district, but really customizing it to make certain that the school districts are getting what they need. Again, resources and practices that they need to be able to implement with fidelity and scale it and attach it to their strategic plan, whether that's 5 goals, culture and community, whether that's a portrait of a graduate, doesn't matter what mechanism they're using, we need to make it work for them. Specifically, I had to have people, though, to do that. And so we built a team that is now called our Integrated Support Services Team. And those folks have backgrounds in social work, licensed clinical counseling, school counseling. We've got some former nurses. We've got former building principals, and we've got former superintendents. And so we've got former school psychologists. We've got practicing clinicians, and we bring these people together so that they can really provide the lens that needs to be given to the school district to look through to really make certain that they're covering all of their bases. But the good news is we do it all under the auspice of MTSS, that multi-tiered system of support. We didn't create a new shape. It's still a triangle, and tier 1, we provide whatever tier 1 services that we need to backfill in. Tier 2, again, if a district doesn't have it, we've got a cadre of resources now that we can kind of pull from. And tier 3, we go into classrooms and work with teachers and students and make sure that, we're modeling behaviors or coaching and consulting. So we've kind of covered the gamut of implementation and scalability, but really proud of the work that team does. They have about 60 to 70 members on any given day in that team, but that team didn't exist 8 years ago. And so really, really proud of how we've pulled all of the right people with all of the right skill sets together in order to deploy implementation and scale with fidelity in our school districts.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, fabulous, fabulous. I mean, kudos to you. And I know it takes a team. I don't get me wrong, but it also takes somebody who's kind of leading that team and leading that work and inspiring the work. And so a couple of things I was thinking about. One is, clearly you've got like your early response team. You get the phone call, those people are ready to go. They know how to go in and support a crisis environment. But what I really liked, it reminded me of the implementation science that I've been exposed to over the years. And just this idea of really honoring local context. Local context matters. And when you can go in with the expertise that your team has and embed the work deeply within the local context, the local strategic plan, chances are you get better outcomes for adults and students and community that system is serving, and you're there kind of supporting what that looks like and bringing that technical expertise so that their implementation of these programs and services has sustainability, deep roots, are growing within the community. People feel good about kind of this trusted program that is being built. And I mention this to our listeners and viewers who might have a specific product. And oftentimes the receiving school district, everybody's plate has become a platter and it just feels like one more thing. But when you really take a little time establish a good root system, till the soil, the harvest is going to be so much greater. So it's almost like, go slow to go fast. And Shannon, you have embodied every bit of that spirit in the teams that that you're creating and sending to support all of these systems that are within your purview. So kudos to you. Let's pause here for a quick 30-second message from our producer, Schoolbeat, formerly MooZoom, which is the only SEO platform both students and educators truly love. With low-lift, Netflix-style, choose your own adventure lessons featuring real kids navigating real-life challenges, daily wellness check-ins, and real-time insights into what students really feel. Schoolbeat is where every heart has a voice and every voice has a beat. Well, we are back with Shannon Cox from Montgomery County Educational Service Center. It has been fantastic. You've really spent a good part of the last decade rethinking how you can best support. And I love the fact that you started off with a moment of vulnerability saying, we did it wrong. You really have to focus on the adults in the system. And I want to shift gears just a little bit to talk about what are some of the things that you do in terms of networks that you might belong to, or daily habits or practices that you have that fill your tank up and keep you motivated. And, like you said, it's important to start with the adults, and you're an adult and you've got a lot of responsibility. How do you keep grounded, centered, and enthusiastic and keep your own tank filled up, so to speak?
Yeah, so I don't think that there's a secret recipe for that. I think everybody kind of has to maybe struggle well through some techniques and try some things to see what best resonates with them, both externally and internally. I am a religious person, a faith-based person, so clearly that is at the center of my spirit and soul. So I do a lot of praying. I do a lot of reflection on the day. And each day, and I always start my day out with gratitude. I wake up in the morning and start, because scientifically, your brain cannot be anxious and grateful at the same time. And so I just start my day with some gratitude. And that can be just self-reflecting, and internally it can be something that I write down. But I always try to say it out loud, whether it's internal or external or written. So there's that. I also tried to make certain that at every season of my life, I'm learning something new. And it just kind of keeps that brain stimulated and makes certain that those synapses are still firing. Now, some have been very unsuccessful. For instance, I went through a stint where I tried to learn how to play the violin. That was pretty bad. My husband will tell you, my kids will tell you, they're like, Mom, time's up. Take that thing back to the instrument shop, return it. So it was pretty bad. CrossFit was another little episode that I went through a couple of years of my life. When I was in high school, I wasn't allowed in the gym because I was of the wrong gender. And so learning the new vocabulary, learning all the implementation names and strategies, I had to Google quite a few techniques. But it was an hour of my day that I was focused solely on not killing myself or someone else with an implement that I didn't know the name of. But it was learning. It was pure learning, and it was obviously very physical exercise. And so I really enjoyed that. My current season is that I am back to school getting my doctorate. And so I should be wrapping that up here in a couple of weeks, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I always feel like you should be learning something new, or learning in general. And so whether it's academic, physical, spiritual, I feel like that's a staple in my life to make certain that I stay grounded and centered. I think it's also important to make certain that you surround yourself with people who are going to push you. My leadership team knows that our cabinet meetings are not just for them to agree with me and nod their head and move on. Those 2 hours that we spend once a week together, that is for pushing each other. It's for questioning each other. It's for learning from each other. It's to make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reasons, and not just because the boss said you needed to, right? So I truly believe that surrounding yourself with people who have the confidence and the courage to be able to be part of that team and push leaders and manage up, if you will, that's important. It keeps me grounded. I don't want ever to do something just because Shannon said we needed to do it. I do believe that people need territories. They need to know what territory they're in. And so if it is something that, because there are going to be times where I am going to need to just go make a decision, and it might be the wrong decision or it might be the right decision, but it will be the decision that I take full ownership of. And so I want to make sure that people know where those territories or boundaries are. So I will tell people, this is a D1. I'm going to come in, I'm making the decision because we don't have the time or the energy or whatever the case may be. In the middle of the pandemic, there were some D1s, right? Because we just didn't have the time to bring stakeholders together and figure out what we needed to do. So I think it's only fair that you give your people the autonomy to make their own decisions as well. And so I try to model that structure in a D1, D2, or D3 decision-making territory. D2s are where I'm still going to make the decision, but I'm bringing people in to make sure that, it's soundproof at that point. It's not going to ever be bulletproof, but it could be soundproof. And then a D3 is when we're going to make this decision together. And when we walk out of this room, everyone will say that we made the decision and we're all going to live by that. And so I think that's a healthy environment for your staff, to make certain that they've got the space to be listened to. You've got the space to listen to them, and it's scheduled. And I guess that's my last piece of advice or wellness for me is I live by a calendar. Now that doesn't work for everybody. But if it's on the calendar, I'm going to get it done. My grocery shopping is on the calendar because that way my family has food to eat. But it works for me. So knowing your habits, knowing your limits, I think you have to take some time to do introspection to make sure that you're really well versed in your own rhythm and your own being. And then I think people should not apologize for living it the way they need to live it, right? I don't believe in a work-life balance. I don't think that exists, actually. I live in a work-life harmony. It's sort of the yin and yang. There are times that I really have to be present at home for whatever reason. There are times I really have to be present at work, and at work could be, in a Zoom meeting on my couch in my physical home location. And my family needs to understand how that works. And they're very supportive of me in that capacity, but it has to work for you. And so I think people really need to spend time, leaders need to spend time understanding how that rhythm, that harmony, works for them. And so I think self-reflection and making certain that you can spend some time with yourself in understanding yourself is also pretty vital of keeping your wellness together. Now, I also think that sometimes I'm a really good eater and sometimes I'm a really good water drinker and sometimes I'm not. And so you got to give yourself some grace in those things too. But keeping physically fit, keeping mentally fit, keeping spiritually fit, those are the things that work for me.
Yeah, boy, so many. I mean, I have learned so much from you, and I don't think I've ever heard it put as well as you put it, which is work-life harmony. Did you hear that from someplace else or?
No, I didn't really. But I've been in a choir. Again, I tried to be in that orchestra. Again, it didn't work out, but I do love music, but sometimes, the music comes from the strings and sometimes it comes from the vocals and sometimes, but when it's all put together in a really well organized manner, it's just a beautiful piece of music. And the best thing that I can come up with that is true harmony. My husband is a much better singer than I am, but we met in a choir. So music has always been part of our life, but it just was something that struck with me and it made sense to me. And when I said it to others, other people could hear it, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly resonated with me. And it's interesting because when I was a high school principal, if I was having a rough day, I would retreat to band practice or choir practice. And I'm serious about that. And it was just,
Yeah.
there was something about what I was observing, and there was a whole like instructional routine that I thought was just magical, where a band director or a choir director, they would hear something that wasn't in harmony. And so everybody stop,
Yep.
have the individual or the section play that series or sequence of notes again, or sing that sequence of notes, and then bring everybody back together. And I always was thinking like that cadence, if we could figure out how to replicate that cadence within a core instructional program or a subject area, more of your traditional classroom, man, I think we would be so much more successful because there's that immediate feedback loop. The other thing, and I'm faith-based person, practice regularly. And one of the things that helped me with was realizing that I cannot spend the energy to control everything and everyone around me.
Yeah.
I've literally seen that aspect of the job drive people crazy. And I think when you kind of have this idea in your mind that you can only do what you can do, you can't influence everybody's actions all around you. And so that came to mind. And I think when I learned to let go a little bit and realize that, I'm not in control of everything and everyone around me, it gave me a different perspective, a more peaceful and calming perspective. We do the very best we can. And, you said so many things. Oh my gosh, I want to be the poster child of neuroplasticity because I am also always trying to learn new things and get those dendrites to connect, and make those new connections. So I love that. And I think the last thing, and I think this is really powerful, and this is why I left it to the very last of my kind of reaction, was this idea of leading up. We all need to lead up. And as a superintendent myself, I was expecting people to lead me and lead up, because there was times where my visibility was not getting deep enough into the system to get a real understanding of the challenges and opportunities. And so I love what you said about your cabinet team and how you're kind of leading up one another. And I think that makes for such better decisions.
Oh yeah.
And it's this idea, not only leading up, but also having a reverse mentor, which is another thing I was really passionate about, was having that young person on the team with that fresh energy and that fresh perspective. You're working on your doctorate. And so one of my favorite kinds of books was Tinkering Toward Utopia by Hayek and Cuban. And it's just this idea that pull of the grammar of schooling is so strong. It's so hard to break people's kind of legacy mindsets around what is, what it is supposed to look like. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to change things in the system. And you've done that. So kudos to you. Shannon, what are you grateful for? What's on your gratitude list?
Oh my goodness. I have so much to be grateful for. I think it's a real opportunity to get to do the work that we get to do each day. There's not a Sunday night where I think, oh, tomorrow's Monday, I've got to go to work or I have to do this. I truly do believe that I get to do the work that I get to do. And certainly there are days that are is this day over yet? Kind of mentalities. And of course it is December. So like the busyness is upon us. But truly just so humbled and grateful that I get to do the work that I get to do each day with the people that I get to do it with, for the communities that I get to do it for, and alongside. It's really something special. I have a board of education that has allowed me to build just a rock star team. And I'm so humbled by and grateful for their talent that they bring to the table every day, and that they share it with us, because they could go a lot of different places. They could leave and go private industry and make lots of money. But they have a passion and a mission, and they're like-minded. They're like missioned and like-minded people. And so it's really great, but they bring such different talents to the table that, again, it's kind of like looking at that orchestra. I've got great strings. I've got great, drum lines over here. I've got great, brass over here in this section. And so everybody gets to really play their part. And it's just really humbling to watch that every single week play out in the field. Again, I can't go to 149 different locations every single day, which is where they go to work every day, but I can certainly get snippets here and there. And so I'm just super grateful for that. I would be lying also if I couldn't say that every day I'm very grateful to have a family that supports me, who sees me for who I am, lets me be the mom and the grandma and the wife and the aunt and the sister and the daughter that I am, because that can be hard sometimes. Shannon's got a pretty big personality. But I'm very grateful that I have that opportunity to have a family that sees me for who I am and lets me be who I am.
Oh, beautifully said. Well, there you have it, folks. Shannon Cox, an outstanding guest here on the Superintendent Hot Seat podcast. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Thanks so much, Shannon. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you too.